everybody. Today, Friday, the 24th day of Tevet, the 24th day of January 2025, Erev Shabbat Kodesh, Perashat Va'era. Today's special breakfast and class has been graciously sponsored by Mr. Joseph Joe Jerome in honor of his dear friends from the 645 Binyan, Mr. Abraham Abadi Balid and Daniel Dayan. Additionally, class and breakfast also dedicated the Refuah Shelema of Esther Bat Polet among the Holim of Am Israel. Today's class has been also graciously sponsored by Charlie and Michael Gamal, the Ilui Nishmat, their beloved uncle, Mr. Albert Gamal, Abraham Ben Simcha, Alav Shalom. Additionally, today's class graciously sponsored by Rabbi Shaul Kassin from the West Deal Synagogue in honor of my wife and I. We wish the great Rabbi to have great beracha naslaha in all his endeavors. Amen. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol nihiyah bidbaro. Okay. Being Erev Shabbat, a bit chilly for us, but the neshama always remains warm. Never forget that. There is a pasuk that says, Esh tamid tukad al hamizbeach lo tichbeh. There is a constant fire burning in the altar. Our rabbis tell us that this refers to the neshama of the person. That even though the body may be cold, but the neshama, the spirit, it's warm. I was also reminded earlier today that today is also the yortzeit of the famous Hatanya, Rabbeinu Sheniur Zalman Miliadi, 2 generations after the Baal Shem Tov, known for the holy book known as the Tanya and the Shulchan Aruch Harav, quoted by the Ben Ish Hai a great amount of times. I'll tell you a quick summary that the book of the Tanya discusses how essential is Avodat Hashem in the life of the person. What does that mean? This book, it's called also Sefer Shel Benonim, the book of the middle of the road people. Now, when you say the middle of the road, if we ask the audience, what does it mean, the middle of the road? Some of us will say 50-50, 50-50, 50 mitzvot, 50 averot. I'm happy to tell you that that's not the correct answer. The Gemara quotes a name of a great rabbi from the Talmud. Amar Rabba, Kegon Ana Benoni. I'm a middle of the road fellow. Can you imagine a rabbi of the Talmud being a middle of the road? And right away he's asked, how is it possible? Lo his mouth never stopped learning Torah. So the answer is that a Benoni really refers to a person who works on their potential that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave them. Has nothing to do with the mitzvot, amount of mitzvot, or amount of averot. The opposite. And he quotes the pasuk, the famous pasuk from the Torah, which was one of the last speeches that Moshe Rabbeinu gave to Am Israel prior to his transition from this world to the Olam HaEmet. And the reason why we speak about him today is because today is his yortzeit. And we know for a fact that any time it comes the yortzeit of the Tzaddikim, the Hachamim, and we speak about them, by default, suddenly their neshamot, their essence becomes connected to each and every one of us. And the same thing happens every time we learn a Mishnah, a Gemara, a Halacha, whatever it may be. Remember this. And he quotes a pasuk from Sefer Devarim towards the end that says, Ki karov elecha davar me'od beficha u'bilbabecha la'asoto. In English it means, Ki karov elecha, cause it's close to you, hadavar me'od, the matter much, beficha, in your mouth, u'bilbabecha, in your heart, la'asoto, to perform it. There are 3 explanations to this verse. One opinion says, Ki karov elecha haddavar refers to teshuvah. That teshuvah is available for anyone and everyone. No one can say, I have the right of teshuvah. Everybody has the right of teshuvah. Everyone has an opportunity based on the situation, based on the behavior, based on who they are, to activate teshuvah. Some of us may need more, some of you may need less, but bottom line, teshuvah, no one can say it's mine, like the Torah. The Torah, no one can claim, I have the control, the Torah, it's mine. Yeah, the only Torah that is yours is the Torah that you learned. That's it. That's your only Torah that you own. That's yours. Nobody else can take away that Torah. But the essence of the Torah, the teachings of the Torah, the lessons of the Torah, munach lechol Israel, is available for everyone. That is one explanation of the word davar. That Moshe Rabbeinu is saying, yes, you may have had a hiccup. Maybe you fell spiritually. You have a downfall spiritually. But bottom line, you can come back. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God allows U-turns. The police may not allow U-turns in certain streets, right? Sometimes you drive and they tell you, don't do U-turns. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu allows U-turn, and the U-turn is called Teshuvah. That is one explanation. Second explanation, the Ben Ish Chai explains, Shabbat. The essence of Shabbat, and where do we learn that Davar connects to Shabbat? It's a pasuk that says in the Navi, Mimeso hefsecha bedaber Davar. It says, in order for me not only to observe Shabbat on what I don't do, because that's an easy way of understanding Shabbat. On Shabbat you're allowed to do this, and on Shabbat you're not allowed to do that. Hazak Baruch. But the Torah and the Navi and the Halakha teaches us that Shabbat is not only how I dress on Shabbat, how do I eat on Shabbat, how much more I pray on Shabbat. All of these examples are required components for Shabbat. Hamavdil ben Kodesh lechol, like a vehicle, right? You need to have all kind of components. When I say the word car, I'm driving a car. Three-letter word, car, three like Shabbat, three letters, Shin Betav, make up a whole gamma. How many parts a vehicle has? Thousands. And guess what? They supplement each other. You cannot say, I don't have to have four wheels. I can have three wheels only. I can do one in the front and one in the back, one on the left, one on the right. Said, no, Hacham, if you don't have the four wheels, the car will not function. Okay, I'm going to have four wheels, but I don't want to have an engine. So the car is not so heavy. Can you drive a car without engine? I know you like it. Or no gasoline, so I don't spend money. No gasoline, you don't move. No electric connection, you don't drive. So in other words, I cannot pick and choose what I want in the car. Yeah, you can say, okay, don't give me leather seat, don't give me too many buttons, which it doesn't exist today. Every car comes with a backup camera, with the sensors, with everything imaginable that we can think, and that makes a car. Look, three-letter word car has thousands of things that are happening. Hamavdil ben Kodesh lechol, same thing is the Shabbat. The Torah teaches us the Shabbat is not only what I do and what don't I do, how do I eat, how many sa'udot, as we learned in the beginning of the class, but even the oxygen of the Shabbat, the air of the Shabbat is affected by the words that we speak on Shabbat. And that's why the Pasuk says, Mimeso hefsecha bedaber davar. And what's the next Pasuk? As tit'anag al Hashem. Once your topics of talking and communications on Shabbat are calibrated to the level of holiness of the Shabbat, then the Shabbat will be surround sound. That's how they call it in the sound system. They call it surround sound. Hazako Baruch. Beautiful. Okay. Thank God. I'm human at the end of the day. Don't think that I'm an angel. I'm human like you. You may be holier than me because you're a Kohen, but we talk about it some other time. But on a more serious note, so according to the Torah also, this pasuk of Moshe Rabbeinu says, Daber, Dabar. Also, be careful on the topics that we speak on Shabbat. That means no business matters. Save them for after Shabbat. Even talking about planning on Shabbat for after Shabbat is a problem. Obviously, money related to, for example, an aliyah, a donation, let's say like a week or two ago, we had the appeal for Hatzalah, and people donate. That is L'Shem Mitzvah, L'Shem Shemaim, and no actual transactions are going around. But when it comes to other matters not connected to a mitzvah or to the sanctity of Shabbat, it is the proper behavior on a Shabbat table that we try to keep to the best of our abilities, the proper decorum. And it's not easy. I'll be the first one to say, because maybe you and I and you and everyone else understands, but sometimes we have guests and they start talking. Suddenly you invited somebody to your home and he asks you, how much is rent in this building? Or how much you pay maintenance? And how are the taxes? Look, from a simple question, I already asked you 3 questions. So if we answer, so he's going to tell you, oh, it's a good deal, it's not a good deal. So suddenly, it became like a snowball, so to speak. So what should be our answer to such a question? B'ezrat Hashem, after Shabbat, I give you all the answers. May not be easy for many people to say this, but since we're trying to do something for Kedusha, to enhance the sanctity and the holiness of the Shabbat, there is siyata d'ishmaya. And this is something that is very dear to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees, thank you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees that a person truly is trying to make the effort, there is siyata d'ishmaya above and beyond our understandings. You know, there is a concept that we discussed in the past, and quoting many great Talmidei Chachamim, we spoke about the topic of ishtadlut, the topic of a person making the effort. And in Avodat Hashem, that is exactly what Moshe Rabbeinu is telling us. Ki karov elecha davar me'od. You want to take upon yourself an extra step to get closer to God. If you hear a voice that says it's impossible, or if you hear a voice that says it's not, don't do it, we need to understand that that voice doesn't come from the good side. It comes from the inner Yetzer Hara voice that is telling us, stop, don't do it, wait, you're not ready. And that's why Moshe Rabbeinu says, Ki karov elecha davar me'od. If you want to take a step closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's in your potential to do it. And even though a person may have an occasional hiccup, let's say, remember the famous pasuk at the end of Atitpalel Hana that says, Ki nafalti kamti, even if I fell, I'm able to get up. And this is how the Batya establishes his holy book known, Sefer Shel Benonim. Let's move over to the Gemara of today, Masechet Nida. Just 1 second. 1 second, please. 1 second. Today I will skip it. We have a very varied audience. So to understand, I will have to explain, and better, like a person needs to know when to speak, the person also, the Gemara says, needs to know when to stay quiet. The problem is that sometimes we speak when we need to stay quiet, and we stay quiet when we need to speak. So you know what? I got many mumhim here in Shalom Bayit topics, so we'll save it for some other time. Zohar of today. Zohar of today reinforces something beautiful that we learned last Friday. The Zohar of today is short and powerful. Discusses the zechut that a Yehudi has in properly observing the Se'udot during the Shabbat Kodesh. We don't have to introduce this topic. I believe that everyone does this at home, hopefully. If not, make sure that every Shabbat, from Shabbat night till Shabbat afternoon, you do the Sa'udot, dinner, lunch, Sa'udah Shalishit. And needless to say, the topic of Melaveh Malka, which is the fourth meal connected to David HaMelech. And the Zohar HaKadosh says that in the Sa'udot of Shabbat, there is a short paragraph that says, Atkinu Se'udata, right? The Memenuta. It says, let us prepare, serve the meal of Emunah. Now, what has to do Emunah with a meal? So the Zohar HaKadosh explains that every time Shabbat comes and we observe the Shabbat and we do the Se'udot, our battery of the department of Emunah gets recharged. Today, can your cell phone work without charging? La, impossible. Today, the new thing is called wireless charging. Correct? You don't need to connect to a wire. Although maybe a wire is faster, but there is such a thing. But bottom line, charging our cell phone, it's imperative. If we don't charge the cell phone, the phone will not work. Or maybe it works until the battery finishes, dies out, and then you need to do Tahiyat HaMetim. You need to plug it in. Hamavdil ben Kodesh lechol, like one of the rabbis said, quoting a lady, and this lady complained to the rabbi that her Shalom Bayit is not doing good at all. So he asked her what seems to be the issue. And she said, I wish my husband pays attention to me like he pays attention to his cell phone. Forget about a dog, but the cell phone. Make sure that it's plugged. Some are mahmir and they sleep with the cell phone next to the bed. I understand that, and that's for many of us, including myself, that's my alarm clock. What she was saying is, Rabbi, I have competition now. Has v'shalom. So says the Zohar HaKadosh that in every Se'udah that we do in the day of the Shabbat Kodesh, it elevates our resistance, meaning to say our emunah level. And that's why the Zohar HaKadosh says, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Hayasameach bechol se'udot Shabbat. When Shabbat came and was able to sit down to enjoy the Se'udah, there was an added component. Usually, the topic of Simcha, it's connected to holidays. On Shabbat, we don't have like a special chapter, Simcha on Shabbat. Why not? Because by default, Shabbat brings Simcha. Kivo Shabbat mikol melachto, asher bara Elokim na'asot, ata echad v'shimcha echad, ata kiddash et yom ha-shevi'i lishmecha, beni uben bnei Israel ot hi le'olam. So all these verses from the Torah and our Shabbat prayer by basically are telling us Shabbat is my day with a Kadosh Baruch Hu that has part physical component, materialistic, like dressing, sleeping, eating, etc. And then it has all the spiritual elements. The Bishop Bar Yochai says that even the Se'udah of Shabbat carries an extra dosage of Kedusha. You know who also wrote it down very clearly? The Pituchei Chotam, Alav Shalom, we spoke about him earlier in the day, in the week, actually was his yortzeit. Last Monday or Tuesday, I believe. Rabbi Yaakov Abu Hasira, he writes and it says, two powerful things connected to the topic of food. Number one, he says, if you have in front of you food that came from Eretz Israel, try to make the beracha on the food from Eretz Israel, because you have Kedusha, Eretz Israel, absorbs the water of Israel, the flour from Israel, the air from Israel. So you breathing, you eating Israel. How many times it happens you go to a kosher store and you buy, oh, this reminds me of Israel, whatever it may be. That's one topic. The second topic he writes and it says, eating the food of Shabbat during the weekday, yani leftovers. Everyone agrees that when you warm up again the leftovers of Shabbat, they have, right? Look at him. Mamash has an unbelievable flavor. Is you reheat the mahshi, the ma'ude, the hamin, whatever, up to Tuesday. No, after Tuesday, no longer. That's it. Because you need to prepare, you need to get ready for Shabbat. But let's be honest, the great Hacham says that even in the weekday, if a person eats food from the Shabbat, the Kedusha of the Shabbat enters the person's body. It's an unbelievable. So if I eat Hiddush, unbelievable Hiddush. So if I eat leftovers on Shabbat, after Shabbat, Shabbat is holding my hands. Every day in the Shaharit prayer, when we say Shir Shel Yom, what do we say? B'Shabbat Kodesh. B'Shabbat Kodesh. Hayom Yom, Sunday morning we're going to say, Hayom Yom Echad B'Shabbat Kodesh. The Ramban says, I believe that's the Ramban says, that we are welcoming the Shabbat already Sunday morning. Yani you're still digesting Melave Malka from the night before, and you're already saying, oh, Shabbat is coming in a week, like Shammai. Shammai, the Gemara tells us, that was Baruch Hashem, a very well-to-do Talmid Hacham from the Talmud financially. And every day of the week, he will go to the supermarket Sunday morning. Yes, Hacham, what can I do for you? I'm looking for something special in honor of Shabbat. Okay, look, I have this fruit. In 5 days, we'll be ready to eat. Beautiful. Then he came back the next day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Every day, he will go. Maybe there'll be something special, Yichvot Shabbat Kodesh. That's why many people have this beautiful tradition. I'm not sure if you heard of this or you have seen it before. I try to do it. That before you sit down to eat on the Shabbat meal, what do you say? Yichvot Shabbat Kodesh. Because when you say these magic words, Yichvot Shabbat Kodesh, you're not just eating. You're eating in honor of the Shabbat. The Gemara tells a story that happened with one time the Caesar came to visit Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi, and he, as a government representative, Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi was the prince of the Jewish nation, invited the Caesar to his home. And if I recall the story, it was on Shabbat. And the Caesar came, of course, we have to do it for the government. And the Caesar came, Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi prepared a magnificent meal. After Shabbat, when the Caesar leaves, tells Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi, I love your food. Can you tell me the recipe? Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi says, of course, my chef will give you the recipe. He gave him the recipe. The Caesar goes back and he tried. A year or a month later came back and he says, I did exactly how you told me to do it, but it doesn't have the flavor. Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi says, did you use Shabbat spice? Did you use spice named Shabbat? So he asked Rabbi Yehuda, no, where do I get it for? Do I need to send a ship to India, to Iraq, to pick it up. He says no. Shabbat is something special in the earth for Am Israel, the way the Pasuk says, that gives the added flavor for Shabbat. Says the Zohar Kadosh further, and it says that a person reinforces their emunah in HaKadosh Baruch Hu through the observance of the Sa'udot. And the question is, what's the connection? So you may say, what's the big deal? Who doesn't do 3 Sa'udot on Shabbat? Don't be so quick to answer. Don't be so quick to answer. Many people do Shabbat dinner. Magnificent. And hopefully they do Shabbat lunch. Hopefully. And hopefully they do Sa'udah Shelishit. But if a person already Shabbat dinner, it's already a Friday night dinner without the holiness and the connotation that it's supposed to have, with the Kiddush, with the Berachot, with a few words of Torah, with avoiding certain topics which are not conducive to the sanctity of the Shabbat. And Shabbat lunch is more a meal than anything else. And Sa'udah Shelishit, Man Madkar Shema, who heard of it? Baruch Hashem, I'm not talking to us that are connected. We are connected, Baruch Hashem. We come to shul every day. We pray every day. We come Shabbat. But guess what? There are people that unfortunately, Shabbat afternoon, they don't go to shul. I hope it doesn't apply to anybody watching or listening live. And I'm not saying because they're not feeling well, God forbid, or it's very difficult to go physically to go to the shul, and they have to come with a walker, wheelchair, etc. Hazve Shalom. Talking about people that physically are able to do so, and there is no other reason but laziness. So if a person, God forbid, is lazy to go to shul on Shabbat afternoon, come to the class, come to the bakashot, come to mincha, come to arvit, come to avdalah, sa'udah, believe me, all this matters. How a small may appear in the eye of the person, but only they are small to someone who doesn't know what's flying. To all of us that come on a regular basis, we understand. Shabbat comes, I feel like $1 billion. Sometimes I'm not happy that Shabbat finished that fast. I want Shabbat to last. Why? Because we enjoy the Shabbat. Oneg. That's what the Pasuk says. As tit'anag, that's what the Zohar Kadosh says. As tit'anag al Hashem. Says you will not develop a relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu, it's like a baby. Every Shabbat, we become babies. Now, what does it mean every Shabbat you become a baby? I'm not a baby. Says, yes, you are. Why? Because the Shabbat can be compared to the umbilical cord. Like a baby and a mother are connected to the umbilical cord, the connector of Shabbat is the umbilical cord that bonds us with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's why the Gemara writes, Kol HaShomer Shabbat, Afilu Abad Abodah Zara Kedor Enosh, Mohalim Lo. The Gemara writes a very strong, beautiful statement, and it says, even if the person, God forbid, may have been involved in idolatry, yani Abodah Zara, and suddenly the person says, you know what? I need to connect with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. What's the fastest internet connection, Wi-Fi, wireless, worldwide? Shabbat. That's why Shabbat in our Torah is very clear. You know this. You say it a few times on Shabbat. Beni o ben bnei Israel, ot hi le'olam. Shabbat is the covenant, the connection. Like tefillin is the weekday connection, and the milah is the constant contact connection for those who understand email systems. There is a company called what? Constant Contact. Have you heard of this? Okay, that's our emails sent from the synagogue. and the class via email come from constant contact. And thousands of synagogues, schools, and all Jewish institutions, they use this because it's very easy to move, to handle it, and unbelievable. They didn't pay any advertisements at all for the promotion of today's class, but it doesn't matter because I use their service to distribute the class daily and the synagogue's emails. So imagine, constant contact is the tefillin mehila, is the berit milah, the tefillin and the Shabbat. Shabbat is the weekend, tefillin is weekday, and berit milah 24/7. That's it. Le'olam, forever. These three matters are not negotiable. And then you may ask a lady, the ladies may say, Rabbi, Chazaku Baruch, Tefillin, Milah, what about us? So I give you a short answer. I know that that question is floating in the air. Spiritually, first of all, the essence of the Shabbat is applicable for everybody, male and female. But you may say, yeah, but Shabbat is only one day a week. It is true. But the wife, it's called in the books of Shlomo HaMelech, in our language, the Eshet Hayil. Our rabbis tell us that God's representative in the world, the Shekhinah, when we speak about the Shekhinah, so to speak, is the female essence in a person's life. That's why pregnancy happens through the wife and not through the man. You may say, oh, because that's how God made the body. I agree with you. But why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu selected the carrier of a new neshama through a woman? Because they are God's representation, so to speak, in the physical world. So they don't need to put on tefillin. They don't need to do tefillah with a minyan. Whatever they do, it goes on the express lane because of being the essence of Kedusha. That's the reason why, since we are in the topic time of Shovavim that we started to discuss last week, one of the areas that the Shovavim, which is related to the personal behavior of the men with the Berit Milah, etc., is by default a reinforcement on the topic of Taharat HaMishpacha, family purity. Now, why is it called specifically family purity? Why do you call it Taharat HaMishpacha? Why don't you call it Taharat HaIsha? If the wife is the one that goes to the monthly situation, and then she is the one that prepares herself, medikot and mikveh, etc., why don't you call the purification of the wife? Short answer, because when the wife becomes purified, it has an influence on the entire family, on the husband and on the children as well. And there are many more things to say on this topic, but for today I think that the Zohar is beautiful, powerful. So for those that are already doing all the Saudot of Shabbat, Hazaku Baruch. For those that were not doing it, utilize this Shabbat Kodesh to reinforce Shabbat dinner, Shabbat night, Shabbat day, lunch, and Saudah Shelishit. And as we learned in the beginning of the Gemara, the ideal way to follow the halacha of Saudot in Shabbat, it needs to have bread, lechem mishneh. So try to make the best of your efforts, and Be'ezat Hashem, all the zechuyot of the Saudot of Shabbat and the emunah benefit at the end of the day. If a person has emunah, we are guaranteed to live a happier life. So who doesn't want to have a happier life? You may say, Rabbi, it's easy for you to say from your chair, you are talking, so you get to say what you want. I don't just say it, I live it. I live it. I see life. And I deal with more cases of life more than most of you put together. Because I deal with, I don't want to say numbers, but Baruch Hashem, an exorbitant amount of scenarios, of situation. Forget my own package. Because I also have a package. You have a package, you have a package, you have a package, you don't have a package. And enjoy your life, young man. Keep learning. What school do you go to? Hazaku Baruch, Rabbi Haver, right? Wonderful. You're in excellent hands. Keep it up, okay? Baruch Hashem. So take advantage of these years, of your youthfulness, of your loving parents, your friends, your environment. But as a person grows, life comes with different packages. And guaranteed that a person, like David HaMelech says, chapter 27 of Tehillim, no, chapter 27 of Tehillim, how does it end? Kaveh el Hashem, Hazak ve'yames libecha ve'kaveh el Hashem. Have hope in God, strengthen and encourage your heart, and have hope in God. And one of the Mefarshim asked, why the repetition? Why the redundancy? What is a sandwich? Bread, daily bread? Now David HaMelech is saying, have hope in Hashem, and Hashem be with you. But if for some reason you don't see the salvation yet, don't despair. Look what happened in our parasha. Look what happened at the end of last week's parasha. We didn't pay too much attention to the end of last week's parasha, but last week's parasha did not have a happy ending. Last week's parasha finished by a complaint. Who complained? Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu says to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God, I don't understand. You send me to speak on behalf of the Jewish people. למה הרעותה? למה זה שלחתני? הרע לעם הזה? ויעשה לו הסלת את עמך. Moshe Rabbeinu complains to God, and he says, it went bad. Why did you send me? And it became, not only became worse, but there was no salvation for the Jewish people. Can you imagine the frustration of Moshe Rabbeinu? God is telling him, go redeem my children. After finally Moshe Rabbeinu reluctantly accepted after a week of negotiation. Can you imagine God asks you to do something and you tell God, no, I'm not qualified. The next day, 7 days, back and forth, back and forth. Finally, Moshe Rabbeinu goes, and he starts going. He feels like he's failing. He thought, I came to do something good, and it's becoming worse. This is like labor. Until the wife gets pregnant, that's a miracle, right? Then she goes through the stages the way the Gemara describes. The first trimester, the second trimester, the third trimester. And then what it comes? Heble Leda. The birth pains, meaning to say the challenges of labor. But once the birth took place, all the challenges of the past 9 months, the simcha, the happiness of holding a new neshama in your hands, your baby, it helps you just to forget whatever the person went through. Moshe Rabbeinu says, I don't understand. I went, I delivered, I followed the manual step by step, and I failed. So God says to Moshe, you need to read. You need to read God's answer. God's answer to Moshe Rabbeinu is a bittersweet answer. It's a bittersweet with a prophetic statement. You know what God says? I'm going to translate it the way many people understand this verse. God is saying to Moshe, now you're going to see what I'm going to do to Pharaoh, that he will send you and will evict you from his land. To you, what this pasuk means? That God is saying to Moshe, I'm going to send the Jewish people free. That's what you understood. That's the literal meaning of pasuk. I'm going to tell you now what's the meaning of the pasuk says. Vayomer Hashem el Moshe, Ata tir'eh. Now you'll see, but you will not see what's going to happen 40 years from now. You're going to see the first stage of the redemption out of Egypt, but you will not see the entering into the land of Israel. You doubted me? What's in your eyes, it's wrong. It's part of the master plan. I know you may ask, but Rabbi, come on. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't do it with any kind of ill intentions, God forbid, to complain against God. The opposite. Moshe Rabbeinu wants to defend the Jewish people. But that's what God is telling Moshe. Ata tir'eh. Now you will see. Irharta al middotai. Rashi says, what does the meaning of now you will see? God says to Moshe, you suspecting me that I did something wrong? Go to Abraham Avinu. Abraham Avinu was barren for 75 years. And then I said to him, Kibe Ishaq ikare lecha Sara. Your son Ishaq will be your descendant. And then I said to Abraham, do the Akedah. What is God, bipolar? One time God is telling you, your son Ishaq is going to be your future. And 37 years later, Akedat Ishaq. And what the Pasuk says, Abraham Avinu says, if HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling me to do something, Hashem knows best. It's like children. Okay? Imagine yourself that a child wants something, or a child wants to do something, and the parents say, no, not today, not yet. You're too young to do things. Probably a child or a young man may think, you good there? What about the young man behind you? Is he good also? Thank you. Beautiful. No, I think you wanted to speak to me, but tell him after. Maybe he felt touched by what I just said. He wants to do something. His parents are telling him no. Now, why a parent says or wants to say or needs to say no to a child, son or daughter, doesn't matter. And based on the age, yes and no are very important, because parents know best. Maybe in your eyes, going out to someone's house may be fun, but the parents know, I don't like the environment of that house. Many parents are this way. Bring your friends home. No, I want to go to their home. No. Bring your friends home. I put your pizza, chips, whatever. Why parents do this? Because internally, they don't know what type of home is that home. And the guidelines and fences to protect our children are essential. So sometimes when a parent says no to a child, it means I love you, and for that reason I say no. And maybe the child gets upset. How do I know this? Because I went through this when I was a child. And I remember many times I asked things or to do things, and I was told no. And what do you think was in my brain? I don't understand. Half of the things that I asked my parents, they mean no. You know when I realized that that no meant I love you? When I became a parent. And as became more mature in life, I understood retroactively that they didn't tell me no because they want to tell me no. They tell me no because they want to protect me. And that's in a way what happened with Moshe. Moshe Rabbeinu says, I don't understand. You asked me to get involved, I ruin it. God says to Moshe, what in your eyes appears no and bad, God forbid, is all part of the master plan. And we all know the happy ending of the story. Okay, let me see if there is anything else. The Hatam Sofer, just to say one line on the opening statement of today's parasha, the pasuk says, "Vaydaber Elokim el Moshe bayomer elav ani Hashem." Elokim, Hashem's name, Elokim, is always connected to strict judgment, to justice. Hashem, Yod-Ke, Vav-Ke, is Hashem's name of compassion. So Hashem is talking to Moshe Rabbeinu harshly. That's why it says, Vaydaber Elokim. Bayomer and Elokim, they don't match. Because Bayomer is soft, Elokim is harsh. So it says, Vaydaber, Lashon Tzivui. God is telling Moshe Rabbeinu, we need to talk. Can you imagine if I tell you, I need to talk to you after the class, and I'm not smiling? You're already shaking. That's what God says to Moshe. Vaydaber Elokim el Moshe. Moshe, we need to talk. Vayomer elav ani Hashem. They sit in the room. Rohi. I know. That's this opening pasuk. From one extreme to the other comes the Hatam Sofer. And it says as follows. Says the Hatam Sofer, Moshe Rabbeinu realized that talking to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this way is not appropriate. So the Hatam Sofer says, what, Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't have emunah? Moshe Rabbeinu, who saw godliness from day one, born premature, protected, saved the very same day that he was put into the water, born with a Berit Milah, adopted by Batya and raised by Paro in the palace, goes to Midian, marries Sipporah, has the Mate of Adam Arishon, is already doing Makot. So you're going to tell me that Moshe Rabbeinu has no emunah in HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Says the Hatam Sofer, that Moshe Rabbeinu realized that the way he talked to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it wasn't the right way. But Moshe Rabbeinu says, I'm willing to pay the price if I'm able to expedite the release of the Jewish people. It's an unbelievable angle now. So Moshe Rabbeinu really wasn't doubting God's mission. Moshe Rabbeinu says, God, I believe in you, but guess what? You're taking too long. You're taking too long. How can you talk to me like this? Moshe Rabbeinu says, Hatan Sofer, I don't care. If you need to punish me because I spoke to you this way, I'm willing to pay the price. But I wanted to go into record that I raise my voice for the well-being of the Jewish people. And if it means that you're not going to be happy with me, I'm willing to take the hit. But I want you to redeem the Jewish people. And we all know the happy ending of the story. The decree of remaining in Egypt, it was shrunk. Yes, we stayed 210 out of 400. Remember the pasuk? 400, Rabba Meot Shana. It went down to 210. That's already 190 years discount based on the calculation. And then what do we have also? We have Redu, what Yaakov Avinu said to the Shevatim, but we also got a discount that only the remaining 80-some years were the years of hard labor. The previous, the balance between 210 and 86 were comfortable for the Jewish people. So less is more. We shrunk the years of slavery into much more lower number, and the claim of Moshe Rabbeinu in this week's parasha sent a rush order. That's why the pasuk writes at the end. Listen to the words. I want to read it one more time. It says, "Ki beyad hazaka ubeyad hazaka." Twice it says. If it's me writing the pasuk, I would have said, "Ki maher yeshalechem veyegareshem." And I didn't even know why you have to use two verbs. It says beyad hazaka, with the strong hands. Yeshalechem, will send you out. Ubiyad hazaka yegareshem me'arso. And it says here the pirush, and it says that the power of the miracle of Egypt, it will be pushing the Jewish people out with both hands. Fascinating, Khatam Sofer. My dear friends, Shabbat Shalom everybody. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen be'amen. Rabbi Hanania ben Akashia Omer, רצה הקדוש ברוך הוא לזכות את ישראל לפיכך הרבה להם תורה מצוות